Okay, thank you, Yolanda. And we will be recording this meeting. So we're here today to have a virtual conversation about the UDO. And today we're just going to do an overview of what the UDO is, what's in it, and how you can get more information. So we'll start with just going over how this meeting will run. The slides will probably take 15 minutes or so to get through. That will leave us about 45 minutes for conversation, question and answer, and so forth. I'll narrate the presentation. Other people on our team will help in the background. We ask that as we're going through the presentation and afterwards, that any questions or comments you may have, please use the chat feature of Zoom to enter. We'll try to keep up with those comments and questions and our responses as best we can in live time going forward. But at the end, we will try to catch up with any questions or comments that we haven't had a chance to answer live. I think we all know, we've probably all used Zoom enough by now to know how to use the chat feature. So if you're having trouble with that, raise your hand and maybe we can get you some help. But that's how we plan to work the meeting. The purpose of this meeting is simply to try to answer questions and share with you what is included in the first draft of the UDO, and to help you understand how the UDO is organized and to try to clarify what standards are actually included. We're not here to get into the details of specific standards or to talk about any site-specific questions you might have about how the UDO will apply to your particular development or site or problem that you're having or question that you're having. This is intended as a general overview. And as we go along, you'll see that we've got other sessions planned that will be more focused toward various topics within the UDO, and those kinds of things are maybe more appropriate for a future meeting. So for today, we've got a limited amount of time, so we'll just focus on what's in the UDO and help you get through that. So I want to go through what our current schedule looks like for where we go from here. We released the first draft of the UDO in October. We are in the middle of our public engagement period. We're collecting comments, we're having meetings, we're getting feedback on the first draft, and we'll be doing that through January. Then we'll take the comments and feedback and we will create a red line version, a second draft of the UDO, where you'll be able to see whatever changes may have been made between the first draft and the second draft based on the feedback that we've received. And we'll have another period of public engagement where we'll collect comments and feedback on the second draft. Then we will develop a public hearing draft that will go to the public hearing that City Council will hold. That public hearing is currently scheduled for June. We'll also go to the planning committee of our planning commission, and they will review that. We will develop a final, hopefully final adoption draft of the UDO, which is the final version that will be voted on by City Council. That version may even be adjusted. And then we will, you'll be able to make comments to the City Council at that point, and City Council will ultimately vote on whether to approve the UDO or not. That is currently scheduled for July. So that's what our schedule looks like today. So let me get into a little bit of the background, why we're doing this and what the UDO is. So the UDO is really taking our land development regulations from various different chapters of our city code and even outside of our city code in a couple of instances, and updating them and putting them all together and making them all work together. That's the intent, so that there will be one place for people to go to learn about what you need to do to develop your sites. It's also intended to implement the policies of the adopted Charlotte Future 2040 Comprehensive Plan. So it's the plan has been adopted. They're in the process now of doing place type mapping through the policy mapping process, which is a separate process from the UDO. And then the UDO will implement the policies of the comprehensive plan. So why are we doing it? Well, as I just said, we want to implement the policies of the plan, but we also want to be able to create more predictability in the development process. We want to make sure that all of our different regulations that are currently administered by different departments in some cases, and they're kind of in different places, all work together. They don't always work seamlessly together now. That's our goal, is to make that happen. We also want to update those standards as needed to reflect what the best practices are in the industry today. We want to consolidate everything into one place so you don't have to search far and wide to find the rules and regulations that you need to know about for your development. We hopefully want to make it more user-friendly, and we'll do that through simplifying terms and creating a common language across all of these different sets of regulations. We hope to include more graphics and make it a little bit easier. And finally, we want to make sure that we're in compliance with the new North Carolina planning laws, 160D legislation, as it's known. So the UDO is basically in 5 different sections. We have an introductory section. We've got a section on zoning, then another section on subdivision, streets, and other infrastructure, a section on stormwater and natural resources, and finally a UDO administrative section. I'll go into a little bit more detail as we go along about what's included in all of those. So I just told you that the UDO is in 5 sections. Now I'm going to tell you that it's organized into 13 parts. And I'll go through what is in each of those 13 parts. But overall, we have 40 different articles that are contained in those 13 parts. So I'll just walk through these slides, and this looks very much like the table of contents in the UDO. It's kind of a simplified, boiled down version of what you'll see in the UDO's table of contents. But part 1 is our introductory articles, and that's Article 1 and 2, which gives the title, purpose, and applicability, the rules of construction, abbreviations, and definitions. Our part 2 is Introduction to Zoning. This has the zoning districts that will be in the UDO, and talks about the zoning map, and it gets into a little bit of what frontages are and how they're used. Part 3 is our neighborhood zoning districts. We've got several new residential districts, neighborhood districts to be used in our neighborhood 1 and neighborhood 2 place types. So they're in part 3 of the UDO. Part 4 is our employment districts, and you can see on the screen articles 6, 7, 8, and 9 have various commercial, campus, manufacturing, and logistics, which is our new way of saying industrial, and innovation mixed use district, which is a new concept for us in Charlotte. Part 5 has our centers zoning districts. These are our main activity centers that will be mapped through the policy mapping process. Articles 10, 11, 12, and 13 cover the neighborhood center districts, the community activity center districts, the regional activity centers, and our transit-oriented development areas. Part 6 are special purpose and overlay districts. Part 7 are the use regulations. So any of you familiar with our current zoning ordinance will know about our use tables and so forth. You'll see new versions of those in the UDO. Part 8 is our general development zoning standards, articles 16 through 22. A lot of these things are currently covered in Chapter 12 of our current zoning ordinance, and we've also included other things as well. This is where you will find parking requirements, for example, landscaping and screening, and the sign ordinance, all in Part 8 of in the general development standards. Part 9, we get into stormwater and natural resources. And you can see there are several articles here, 23 through 29, and they bring in to the UDO all of the various stormwater and natural resources regulations, including watershed protection, drainage, PCSO or post-construction stormwater regulations, swim buffers, floodplain regulations, erosion and sedimentation control, and a tree protection, tree ordinance, if you will. Part 10 is subdivision, streets, and other infrastructure, articles 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, and 35. And you can see what's included there. These are some of our street requirements and other infrastructure. There will be some new concepts as you get into the more detailed, dig into the details of some of those. You'll see some new concepts that we can go over at a different meeting with you. And then finally, toward the end of the UDO, we have parts 11, 12, and 13. Part 11 is administration, 3 articles that cover various administrations aspects. Part 12, nonconformities. And finally, part 13 is Article 40, enforcement of the UDO. So we released the first draft in October of the UDO. We have been holding several community engagement meetings since then. We held our 5th in-person open house yesterday to try to just answer questions people may have. We had them in various locations around the city, and people would be able to come and speak with subject matter experts at these meetings and answer and pose any questions and get answers to questions that they may have these meetings. Now that our open house meetings have concluded for now, we're going into a period of virtual meetings, and this is the first of those. We'll be collecting and accepting comments on the first draft through January 14th. And we've got obviously our charlotteudo.org website is a source of information for the community going forward. So I've talked a little bit about how we're engaging people. We do have information on our Charlotte UDO website. That's also where you'll go to provide your comments, and I'll get into that in a slide or two. I've explained that we've had some virtual and in-person meetings, or we've had in-person meetings. We're going into more virtual meetings now. We've been posting regularly on social media to try to inform people of the open house meetings and the virtual meetings, and to just generate some interest and steer them toward the website for more information. We will be reviewing comments and working on a red line version for the next draft of the UDO with any changes that we make based on the feedback that we've gotten. And if you want to make sure that you get all of the latest information and email blasts from us and social media, you can sign up and subscribe for updates on our website. So I mentioned that this is the first of our virtual meetings. You can see that today is December 12th. We've got several more of these scheduled through the early part of January, with each future meeting focusing on a more specific topic. Today is just intended to be a general overview of the UDO, but going forward, we'll focus on various aspects and topics within the UDO. We're having these virtual meetings. They're only 1 hour long, so we need to make the best use of that short amount of time, but we want to respect your time. We know that you're all busy as well, so we're trying to cram as much as we can into this 1 hour. And for convenience, we're scheduling all of these meetings both at the noontime hour and at 6 p.m. To try to accommodate various schedules. You are required to register to be here, and so we know you all know that because you're all here, so you've registered, and you can use the QR code that is on the flyer, or you can go on and register on our website. It's very easy to do. So The UDO website is where you go to not only read the UDO, but also to enter any comments you may have. So when you first go to charlotteudo.org, you're going to see the image on the top right of the screen with the big orange box that says now available Unified Development Ordinance First Draft. And you click there and that will take you to where you can read the various sections of the UDO. It's broken down into smaller sections so that you don't have to download and read the whole 600-page UDO all at once. You can focus in on the areas that you're most interested in reading about and make your comments there. And then you can see that the lower image on the right-hand side where it says read and comment on the UDO by topic, that is where you go to enter your comments on our platform. And then obviously we've also got additional information on our website, including the schedules of upcoming meetings, supporting documents. We have an FAQ and more. And finally, we know that a 600-page UDO is a pretty big document to try to wade through and to understand. And so to help, we've created a 26-page reference guide, which you can also get from our website. If you go to the tab at the top of our main page that says helpful resources, it's a pull-down box and you'll see a tab for the reference guide. And it is what we hope is an easy to understand guide that will walk you through the different elements of the first draft of the UDO, let you know what's in each of the articles, where to find the information that you need, and we'll also give you a little bit of information on some of the new concepts that we have introduced in the UDO, including some of the residential overlay districts, a different way of addressing parking through a tier system, parking tiers, some new tree ordinance, tree preservation regulations, and transportation improvements. So that is the conclusion of the prepared slides that we have. So we will from now go into our chat, and I see that we don't have much yet in our chat feature. So I don't know if that's because we've covered everything, and I sincerely doubt that, or whether you're just here to observe today, or you can't find the chat feature. So all right, I see some typing going on, so we'll sit here and see if we get some questions or comments.
Just to break up the silence a little bit, I think, and encourage those that are on the call that maybe don't have experience with this or have what you might think as this very simple question. There really are no dumb questions. We know that this is a big document and hard to understand. So we want to make ourselves available for any level of question. Don't be afraid to send a message. You can send direct messages to us as well if you want to do that. But questions submitted into the chat are going to be the best way for us to answer because they're recorded. And yeah, we'd be happy to help. So I think we have something now.
Just a quick question. Do you want us to, the questions are coming in on chat. Would you like us to answer them? I'm assuming out loud, just to be.
Yes. Yeah. You can share the response. If you have the answer, feel free to jump in. I don't know how we want to take this, Alan, if you want to be the keeper of the sort of facilitation, or do you want us to sort of take them?
Yeah. I'm going to go back to, I think, sharing the screen maybe, because that might
Easier if I do it this way.
Might be easier if I have to go back and reference some of the slides that we've shown. And I think maybe that's the way to go on this. So.
And I'm just looking it up right now in the landscape chapter, just to kind of talk about, in terms of, there was a question here in chat that asked, have native plants, trees, shrubs, and plants been incorporated into the landscaping plans? And so what we've done, when you look, and if you're interested in landscape, as Alan said, that's Article 21, the shrubs and trees that are to be used in the planting that we've required are those that are on the approved plant species list in the Charlotte Land Development Standards Manual. So that's where the types of plants that you can plant, gotta stop saying plant, can be found, which, you know, is looking at things that are native to the area.
Thanks, Arista. A question from someone on where to find the 26-page reference guide. So I covered it in this slide, but the easiest way, and my colleague Kevin has put a clickable link in there as well, if that helps. But you can also go to the charlotteudo.org website, and at the very top in the menu bar, there's a pull down for helpful resources. And if you click on that, you'll find a tab for the reference guide. It's the top tab that you'll see if you use that helpful resources pull down menu. And that will open up the PDF for you right in your web browser. And you can read it there, or you can download it and read it later. Got a question about, or a comment about looking for the place type recommendations for, and I want to steer people to the, for questions on place types and the comprehensive plan, to the comprehensive plan website, which you'll be able to find the approved plan as well as the link for the Charlotte Future Plan. So I will try to find that and put it in the chat. Put that link in the chat for people.
I want to have you covered. I've added it to the chat. So.
Oh, thank you, Yolanda. That's helpful.
Alan, there's a new question in the chat from Alicia McConnell. Question, will changed and new terms be included in a separate key to help users navigate and focus on understanding them and the changes they will cause? So I might need a little bit more clarification on this, but the one thing to say is that the UDO does have a very robust definition section. You know, a lot of terms have changed as we've moved to implement the Charlotte's comprehensive plan and the place types that are part of that and the terms that they use. And so we've tried to make sure that all the general terms that we use throughout the document are in that definition section. And as you can see, when you flip to it, it's a very, very robust set of definitions that should help everybody understand when they're looking, whether district standards or something in natural resources or stormwater, what the terms we're using will mean.
Yeah, thanks, Arista.
If I didn't get it right, please give us a little bit more information.
Thanks, Arista. And I want to try to be helpful for people looking for the policy map. So I'm going to share my screen again. I've called up the Charlotte Future website. So hopefully you can soon, you'll be able to see that on my screen. It's a black background. So this is where you go when you go to the Charlotte Future 2040 website. And then all you need to do is scroll down, and the next thing you'll come to is the Charlotte Future 2040 policy map. And you want to go to this orange button that says View Map. And if you click on that, it will pull up the policy map. And you kind of have to zoom in a little bit because there are so many comments that have been added to the map that I wish there was a way to maybe just look at the map without having to see all of them, but I haven't figured out how to do that yet. So that's how you get to the policy map and the place type mapping. It's through the comprehensive plan website.
Hi, this is Linda. I have a question. In regards to the whole plan, I know I talked to someone at one of the open houses, but when does it all take effect? I know people that have committed for rezoning at this point are not in this process, but when does it all take effect?
I'll take that one. Currently, we're looking at an adoption date in July and an effective date a number of months after that, but we're still working through those details. So I want to say that that could adjust. We're trying to see how we can make things work so that people have the flexibility. If they're working on a project under our current regulations, they can complete that. But that people that also want to go ahead and use the new regulations will be able to use those as soon as possible. So I know that's not fully answering your question. I can tell you it will not take effect or be adopted before July of next year. And stay tuned, we'll continue to put information on the website. This is something we're getting questions a lot about. So we can put information on our website to help answer that and keep people up to date on what the thinking is and the proposal for that.
Thank you, Laura. And that was the thought, you know, people are thinking, well, my first thought was 2040. Well, there's a lot of trees that are going to come down before then. So that was the thought too, is when is it going to start happening? And I was thinking originally 2040, but like you're saying, it's possibly June or even just 2022 altogether. Thank you.
Any other questions people have? I know you've taken time out of your day to join us, and we want to make sure that we can provide you the information you need to be able to delve into this document.
Well, I want to share I'll share the slide again that's got our schedule of upcoming virtual meetings. And perhaps this overview has been not exactly what you're looking for. So if you've got more specific questions, take a look at the dates on your screen. I think everybody can hopefully see that. For the rest of the virtual conversations, our next one will be next Tuesday, and we'll get into an overview of our zoning districts. And then Thursday of next week, we will talk about the tree regulations. The following week on Tuesday, we'll talk about the subdivision network and access and other infrastructure pieces of the UDO. Thursday of that week on the 16th, we'll dig into the neighborhood zoning districts, the N1 and N2 zoning districts. And then the following Tuesday, a few days before Christmas on the 21st, we'll talk about the administration section of the UDO. Then we'll take a break for the holidays and come back after the new year and have a session on January 4th, which is intended at this point to be a question and answer for frequent users of the ordinance, who that could be a session that you may want to attend if you've got very specific questions about how the UDO will apply to your particular development or project or site. And then the next day on the 5th, January 5th, we'll talk about stormwater. And then the day after that, on the 6th, a Thursday, parking, landscaping, and open space. And then our final scheduled virtual conversation will be January 11th. and we'll talk about required new streets, improvements, and associated standards. So if you're here today to want to get a little bit deeper into some of the different sections and regulations in the UDO, take a look at that upcoming schedule for virtual conversations, and hopefully one of those future sessions will, one or more will be one that you'll want to attend, and make sure that you register for those. Well, I'm not seeing any new questions or comments, and we want to be respectful of your time. So if there's nothing else, feel free to leave the room, or if you want to stay here and see if something else jogs your, jogs a question in your mind that you want to answer. We will be here, I think, until noon, rather until 1 o'clock. So if you've had your question answered and want to move on and do something else with the rest of your hour, feel free to do that. Otherwise, we'll be here for a little while longer. And I'd like to thank everybody who registered and signed up and came to our first virtual conversation.
Alan, if you can just explain a little bit more too of how you're getting the word out. I mean, I personally try to promote it within all my groups, but just wondering, is there radio, TV?
I'm going to ask my colleagues, Andrew and Mariah and Yolanda, whoever wants to jump in and talk about how we're getting the word out on the UDO and some of the ways that we've been doing that.
Hi, Linda. Thank you for your question. So we know we have not done radio or television spots outside of our Gov channel. In transparency, budget wise, we have to think strategically about that. However, we are using all of our social channels, including the City of Charlotte's social channels, which has a pretty massive reach, including boosting posts to try to get those out further into the community. We lean a lot on our respective stakeholders to help us push information. Obviously, we share it with our elected and appointed officials to also share. If you happen to know of an additional way that you think of that might be helpful, we would definitely explore that. We have used Nextdoor, which I'll have to be transparent, we're learning more and more about on how to get that information shared via Nextdoor to specific areas at a more granular level to try to get information out. So absolutely, if you can think of any other additional ways, we will definitely try it. I do want to point out that this is just phase one of this. We will continue to do engagement touch points throughout the remaining drafts, which again, this is just draft one. So we will continue to do that. We are working on a choose your adventure or choose your interest type series of videos that kind of do even more explaining. So we're going to hopefully be able to push that via maybe some paid media. So we are absolutely trying to explore all avenues of getting information out. We also, as Alan mentioned in his presentation, have a listserv where folks sign up to receive this information. So you may get it via email, via text. There's a way to get a text message about all of our upcoming events or whenever we push out anything related to this project. So if you have specific maybe neighborhood groups that you'd like us to send to, please don't hesitate to sign up. You'll be able to forward it out for us. We are open for ideas, for sure.
Thank you. It's always hard now with COVID and not doing things in person.
Absolutely.
Did you have a good turnout? Yeah. Did you have a good turnout with the open houses? And are you able to do tabling, like going to an event? We've had a few Andrews come to a few of our events. and just put up a table and, you know, talk to anyone that comes to the event?
Right, so we did overall, obviously it varied at different locations, but we did have pretty decent turnout. Obviously not hundreds and hundreds of folks at one, but for the open houses, those were our attempt at our in-person. But again, we're definitely sharing that we will continue to do these in phase 2 as we stand up our next phase of engagement after the next draft comes out. But again, we would definitely love help. If you have any groups that we could reach out to or we can share with you, please, please, please don't hesitate to reach out to us to be able to share. We create flyers. Obviously, the information's on our website. If you can share that far and wide, that is probably the most up-to-date, consistently updated place to find information about events. Also, we will always send you back there to register for events. One of the things we do try to do is obviously, even for the open houses, have registration so that we can get a count of how many people registered or wanted to be a part of it. And also capture, if you have decided to be a part of it and you've tapped in, we want to continue to have the conversation with you and have your information to continue to share and help us push the word out. And Andrew is awesome. I'm sure he'll set up a table. Anyway, I'm just kidding. Andrew is pretty awesome, but we have a really great team. But I thank you again for that question, Linda. And if you need my information personally, I definitely would give that to you. If you could think of some more ways to get some information out, we are open. But you are right, the pandemic has changed a lot for us, so.
Right, because people could go to events and be like, well, I can go listen, you know, but now with COVID and people feeling a little restricted, they don't want to get too much of a group, right?
Absolutely,
And then like
very true.
table events help, you know, just being at some, of course, right now it's winter, but, you know, any kind of open street 704 and stuff like that, yeah. But thank you.
I think we do have one additional, Alicia McConnell, I believe. I'm not sure if she's still on. The question was about specific topics, but absolutely, and I think you have answered it there. This is really a general Q&A about what the UDO is, so you absolutely can schedule or register for those topic specific virtual conversations, and I think that will definitely help you for the specific questions you have around things. Absolutely. And then, Alan, I don't know if you see that final question. Possible, could you please explain the difference between previous zoning development and 2014?
I do see the final, the last question in the chat. I'm not quite sure I understand the question, how to respond to that. And forgive me if I'm mispronouncing your name, Sridhar. If you want to unmute and maybe explain what your question is a little bit more so we can hopefully try to answer it for you.
Yeah, hi. Entirely, but I felt like it's something different than the zoning development, the plan, the 2040 plan. So I just want to know a little bit more about that, the perspective behind it, and what changes that you really want to see in this development plan than the before. You had a plan, right? So where the changes are made and in the either zoning or particular areas, I mean, like.
Alan, I can try to at least provide some information on that, if that's okay. Sure. So the 2040 plan provides the intent of the city or the policy for properties, and the policy maps for each property, for each area, is classified with a different place type, which really is a new type of land use classification category. So it's really important to be engaged in that process so you can see how different properties what is being called for those properties, what's being recommended for those properties is how it's being, what's being recommended. What the UDO will do is then has a series of zoning districts for virtually every place type. And those we will look at what that council adopted policy place type map shows for properties. And we have zoning districts that are developed in the UDO that are intended to create the type of development called for in each place type. So they're really, the comprehensive plan and the policy place type map really say what the community should be. And that's where the big changes will be with that policy map. And then we will follow on the UDO side with new zoning districts to implement that policy. So it's hard to say without looking at a grouping of parcels what the changes are. But looking at that policy map versus our current policies, land use map would probably be really helpful for you. And then you can follow that and we can tell you what zoning districts could be used to implement that policy for those properties.
Thank you. So I understand, like before, I didn't know much about it, but what I understand by reading few paras, like you use that type case something, type plans or something you said, then the zoning, was that?
The place types come first.
Place type. It's
Yes.
a place
And then
type
the zoning
means
will
like
follow.
every place will have the different, not like this part is something like your zone, like this is something, this area, that area. It's not like that, but within the same zone that you will have all the types of kind of buildings.
No, some of the place types may be more residentially based oriented, and it may allow only residential or limited in addition to residential. Others may be a greater mix of buildings. It really depends on the different place types. So I would recommend to anyone, if you haven't explored the place types and the place type mapping, that's a big foundation for the future zoning of property. So I would look at that, and that is going to lead you to, in this place type, there may be 3 potential new zoning districts that would be used in that place type. And so that's how the UDO links back to the place type work.
Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for those questions. I'm not seeing any other questions. So anyone have any last thoughts? If not, I think we can end. Again, thank you for coming to our first virtual conversation, and we hope to see you at one of our future conversations.
Thank you, everyone.